Welcome back, commissioners. I play in a lot of deep Devy leagues, and one of the MFL limitations to the custom player database is 200 maximum. While that may not be exceeded in year one of your deep Devy league, certainly by years 2 and 3, when you have freshmen and sophomore that are still on owners line taxi squads, they need to stay in the database as custom names. You find that you get to where you need to exceed the 200. Let's say that you're in the middle of a draft and now you want to use place kickers as the designated placeholder for the Devy. At this point, you would normally have to have the place kicker and then a separate Excel spreadsheet of who that place kicker represents. I'm going to show you a cheat code, a way that you can put the name of the Devy player off to the right so it shows in the lineup. It shows so that they can demote them to the taxi squad and list the names, whether you use a defense or a kicker, whatever you're using as a placeholder. You can come over here in the right hand side and put in the name of the player, their position, and even their school if you want to. I still recommend that you keep a separate spreadsheet as a commissioner of all the total Devy players owned, so that just in case, let's say that place kicker retires and 2 years from now MFL purges them from the database. That's still not likely to happen because MFL hangs on to free agents for quite a long period of time. But let's say they delete them for some reason. Now your Excel spreadsheet still has representation of every single player. But what this does, instead of having owners being confused as to having to go back and forth to the spreadsheet every single year to see which Devy player is being represented by that placeholder, you can now have that in the league. It's easier for owners, it's easier for the commissioner, all the way around. So you're in the draft and you've used the 200th custom player, you've replaced them in here. Now you want owners to start using place kickers or defense or whatever the case may be as instead of a free agent, because a free agent is, you can use them, but I would be more concerned that in 2 to 3 years they may be purged from the MFL database. Whereas a place kicker who's an active place kicker, you know they're still going to be in the database for years to come. So what you have to do, there's several steps, but it's really not that hard. You go into the setup, and we want to make sure to go into, there's several different things that we have to do. The first one is your starting lineup setup, and that will be under players and rosters, starting lineup setup, and you want to check the box for either place kicker or defense. Let's say that we want to allow defense. We're going to change that to a 0 with a maximum of 1, so they can use either a defense or a place kicker as a placeholder. You do want to make sure partial lineups are allowed. You can always go back in and change that after the draft if you need to. Save your starting lineups. I'm going to uncheck this one because I really don't need it. Save your starting lineup, then go back into commissioner setup, and now you want to go to the salary cap setup screen, and this is the cheat code. This is where you're going to be able to have a column to the right where you can put their name. You want to keep all of these defaulted to no, and make sure that the one that you're changing, instead of contract years, keep that at no. Other contract information, you want to change that to yes, because in that field, anything else regarding the player can be put into that box. Keep this for contract status as no. Save your salary cap information. Go back to your commissioner setup page, and now you want to edit the scoring for the place kickers. So scoring setup, custom scoring system setup, and then under place kickers you want to edit that. You just want something over here that a kicker doesn't normally do. I have quarterback sacked. You can say passing yards and bring this over to the list, but you don't need two or three. You only need one. I'm going to keep quarterback sacked because just in case for some reason an owner puts the place kicker in their starting lineup, they're not going to get any points. So continue. And now we're ready. So we go to the draft. Let's go back home and let's see who's on the clock. So we hit our draft page, and it happens that Rob Lowe in uniform is on clock. He needs to pick a place kicker and then put the Devy player to the right, just like we've been doing the entire draft. But instead of a free agent, now you're looking for a place kicker. So Rob Lowe is going to make a draft pick. And again, the easiest way is to just filter by the position. So we want to pick a kicker who is active. Let's go with Harrison Butker. And let's say that he's Joe Nagata, wide receiver, Clemson. Just like you would with any other Devy player, but instead of replacing Harrison Butker with a custom name that's Joe Nagata, we're going to keep Harrison Butker. Let me show you what it looks like on the roster. So Rob Lowe in uniform just drafted Harrison Butker. Oh, and he's already got a name in there. Let's ignore that. But the way that you put the names in there, after the draft is all done, there's a couple of things that you still have left to do. And you can go into edit player salaries and contracts. And now you see there's a whole bunch of blanks. There's a bunch of players' names with blanks, and some already have players filled in. So I want to filter by place kicker. And now, rather than try to memorize, you can see that there's several that have been taken because this particular league is very deep Devy. And you, rather than try to memorize who has been drafted and where, you can go into the all my leagues, right click, open in a new window, and then expand this, go to the league that we're talking about, and then click on the draft tab. I now have my draft list here. I'm going to bring and drag this off to the right and then just click on this one. Now I've got my draft list to the right. I've got my open boxes here to the left. I would go to Harrison Butker, and these are alphabetical. And right here, instead of Justin Crawford, because that's an old name, I want to put in Joe Nagata, wide receiver, Clemson. And then for any that are still open, like Kai Forbath is Jack Neely, I go down to Kai Forbath, and I can get rid of his old value and put in the new value, Jack Neely, wide receiver, Alabama. And let's say that Elliott Fry was another player. And now I scroll down after I'm completely done, hit save. I can expand this back. So now if I go into the rosters, I can see, if I go to Rob Lowe in uniform, I can see that Harrison Butker now says Joe Nagata, wide receiver, Clemson. Much, much easier for owners as well as the commissioner. You can then demote them to the taxi squad and have a whole list of the Devy players. That's once you exceed the 200 maximum from the MFL database, you can go in and add this cheat code to be able to view the Devy placeholders, whether it's a kicker, defense, free agent. It doesn't matter. If they're in the MFL database, it's the same process.